Elena Brooks had perfected the art of disappearing in plain sight. In the gilded ballroom of the Plaza Hotel beneath Swarovski chandeliers that cost more than her father's lifetime wages, she moved like a shadow. Present but unseen, necessary but ignored. The white linen uniform that chafed against her skin might as well have been an invisibility cloak. To the guests dripping in diamonds and designer labels, she was furniture, a hand that refilled wine glasses, a body that cleared plates, never a person. She had learned this choreography well. 3 years of waiting tables in Manhattan's most exclusive venues had taught her the rules. Be present but absent. Refill the glass before it empties. Clear the plate the second the fork touches linen. And never ever make eye contact unless spoken to first. The staff room before service smelled of industrial detergent and desperation. Elena counted the tips from her previous shift with practiced efficiency. $73. Still 200 short for rent. The eviction notice tucked in her apartment mailbox gave her 5 days. 5 days to find money she didn't have for a place she could barely afford. She opened her worn wallet. The photo inside made her chest tighten. Thomas Brooks in his construction, hard hat, arms slung around young Elena at her Columbia University acceptance ceremony. Both of them grinning like they'd won the lottery. In a way they had, full scholarship, pre-law program. The American dream wrapped in an acceptance letter. That was 4 years ago, before the diagnosis, before the medical bills that turned dreams into debts, before she traded law books for serving trays. The memory surfaced unbidden. Elena, at 8 years old, sitting in her father's pickup truck after school, Thomas teaching her the game that would shape her mind. Lawyers notice what others miss, sweetheart. Train your brain to remember everything. They practiced with license plates, faces in crowds, conversations overheard in diners. It became their private competition. Who could recall more details? Who could piece together stories from fragments? Her photographic memory wasn't a gift. It was trained, honed, a skill her father believed would carry her far. He had been right about that, just not in the way either of them imagined. Elena closed the wallet, tucked it deep in her apron pocket, pushed through the staff door into the ballroom. The opulence hit like a physical force. Crystal chandeliers refracted light into 1,000 rainbows. Floral arrangements towered on every table, orchids and roses that cost $5,000 each. The guests wore their wealth like armor, tuxedos cut from Italian wool, evening gowns that shimmered with hand-sewn beadwork, jewelry that required insurance policies thicker than textbooks. Elena's polyester uniform suddenly felt cheaper. Her shoes, bought secondhand from a thrift store in Queens, pinched her feet. She was a ghost haunting their party, invisible until needed. Table 1 dominated the room's center, the power table, the king's table, where billionaires held court and decided the fates of thousands with casual conversation. Robert Sterling sat at its head. Even from across the ballroom, he commanded attention. 62 years old but carrying his age like a well-tailored suit. Silver hair swept back from a face that tabloids called distinguished. Blue eyes that financial networks described as sharp enough to cut glass. He laughed at something a board member said, the sound booming and genuine. But Elena noticed what others missed. His eyes carried sadness, the kind of sadness that money couldn't fix, the kind that came from loss too deep to measure in dollars. She recognized him from news coverage, the billionaire who built libraries in slums, the real estate titan who funded community hospitals, the man Forbes called a contradiction, ruthless in the boardroom, generous with his charitable foundation, a capitalist with a conscience. Elena felt the complicated knot of emotions she always experienced when thinking about Robert Sterling, gratitude mixed with resentment. Her father had studied for his GED at Brooks Public Library, the one Sterling's foundation had built in their neighborhood. Free books, free computers, free hope for people the system had written off. Thomas Brooks had loved that library, spent his lunch breaks there eating sandwiches on the front steps, telling young Elena, see, rich men can do good things too. But that same library bore witness to her failure. She'd studied there for the GED after dropping out of Columbia, after her father got sick, after the American dream became the American nightmare of medical debt and impossible choices. $73 in tips. 200 short for rent, a degree she'd never finish, a father she'd never see again. Yes, Robert Sterling did good things, but his charity couldn't save Thomas Brooks from cancer, couldn't save Elena from drowning in the bills he left behind. She forced the bitterness down, picked up a water pitcher, moved toward table 1 with practiced invisibility. That's when she noticed the predator. Derek Stone stood 6 feet behind Robert Sterling's chair, head of security, former NYPD detective. Eyes like a shark scanning dark water. Cold, flat, calculating. Elena's photographic memory cataloged details automatically. The bulge under Stone's left arm, concealed weapon, the way his hand hovered near his jacket. Ready to draw. The micro-expressions that crossed his face when he thought no one was watching. Not protective concern. Something else. Something dangerous. Stone's gaze swept the room in methodical patterns. Elena recognized the behavior from her criminology courses at Columbia. Threat assessment, perimeter security. But something felt wrong about the intensity, about the way he kept checking his watch, about the glance he exchanged with the silver-haired man at Sterling's right, James Thornton, chief financial officer, Sterling's best friend for 35 years. Articles called them inseparable, brothers in everything but blood. But the look they exchanged carried weight, tension, fear disguised as professional courtesy. Elena's instincts screamed warnings she couldn't articulate. She'd worked enough corporate events to recognize the difference between normal nervousness and something darker. This wasn't pre-speech jitters. This was dread. The air felt wrong, like the moment before a thunderstorm. When atmospheric pressure drops and animals go silent and something primal in the human brain recognizes danger. Elena served water at table 1. Robert Sterling didn't look at her. She was invisible, expected. The guests continued their conversation about stock portfolios and vacation homes in the Hamptons. She might as well have been a robot programmed to pour and retreat. But she noticed everything. Derek Stone's jaw clenched when she approached. James Thornton's hand trembled slightly as he lifted his wine glass. A board member's forced laughter that rang hollow. Small tells, tiny fractures in the facade of normalcy. Something was deeply, terribly wrong. The manager's voice crackled in Elena's earpiece. Brooks, need extra napkins from the service hallway. Storage room 3. Elena nodded to no one, set down her pitcher, moved toward the staff corridors with relief, away from table 1, away from the suffocating tension she couldn't name. She glanced back once before pushing through the concealed door. Derek Stone was whispering into his phone. James Thornton checking his watch again. Robert Sterling laughing, oblivious, surrounded by people who smiled with their mouths but not their eyes. The door swung shut behind her. Elena walked into shadows and secrets she wasn't meant to hear. The service hallway smelled of industrial bleach and conspiracies that shouldn't exist. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting the narrow corridor in sickly yellow illumination. Stacks of chairs lined one wall. Old equipment nobody had bothered to remove crowded the other. This was the plaza's backstage, where the machinery of luxury ground forward, invisible to the guests who paid thousands for the illusion of effortless elegance. Elena's cheap shoes squeaked against linoleum as she navigated towards storage room 3. The sound echoed, too loud in the oppressive quiet. She passed the industrial kitchens, heard the controlled chaos of dinner preparation, chefs barking orders in French and Spanish, the percussion of knives on cutting boards, the symphony of a machine designed to feed 300 people food they'd barely taste. She rounded the corner near the service elevator. Voices stopped her cold. 2 men, arguing in harsh whispers that carried the particular venom of people who needed to stay quiet but couldn't contain their rage. Elena's body reacted before her brain caught up, instinct born from growing up in neighborhoods where hearing the wrong thing meant danger. She pressed herself against the wall, held her breath, became invisible in the way that mattered, the way that kept you alive. The voices sharpened as she strained to hear. Tonight, Derek, has to be tonight before the 9 a.m. signing tomorrow. Elena's photographic memory locked onto that voice. Distinctive rasp. She'd heard it before. Where? Think. Context. Association. Her trained mind flipped through files like a computer searching databases. Forbes article, 3 months ago. Sterling's right hand, James Thornton, 35 years of loyalty. That voice belonged to the CFO, Robert Sterling's best friend. Too public. The second voice, deeper, colder. Derek Stone. 300 cameras, 300 witnesses. That's the point, James's voice cracked with desperation. He announces the restructuring at 9 a.m. If he signs those papers, the board loses everything. We lose everything. The charitable trust swallows 60% of voting shares. We're finished. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. She pressed harder against the wall, willed herself smaller, quieter, non-existent. This is about your daughter's medical fund. Derek's statement carried no judgment, just cold fact. James's response came strangled, raw. Sarah needs $200,000 for the experimental surgery in Zurich. One check from Robert would cover it. But no, he'd rather throw billions at strangers. Libraries for people he'll never meet while my daughter rots in a wheelchair. The pain in those words hit Elena like a fist. She remembered suddenly. Charity dinner, last year. James Thornton pushing his daughter's wheelchair. Sarah, mid-20s, paralyzed from the waist down, beautiful and broken. James's face hollow with exhaustion. The kind of exhaustion that comes from watching your child suffer and being powerless to stop it. Her photographic memory supplied the details. Sarah Thornton, former competitive swimmer, car accident 8 years ago, spinal cord injury, permanent paralysis, physical therapy, experimental treatments, insurance denials, medical bills that never stop coming. Elena understood that particular hell intimately, had lived it with her father. The desperate hunt for money to save someone you loved. The impossible math of American healthcare. Life versus bankruptcy. Love versus debt. Her criminology training at Columbia kicked in. Started analyzing. James wasn't a cartoon villain. He was a desperate father. Desperation made people capable of anything. But the next words froze her blood. The insulin pen. Derek's voice dropped an octave. Clinical. Detached. I swapped it at coat check 2 hours ago. Concentrated digoxin. Triggers cardiac arrest in 3 minutes. When Sterling collapses, I escort him to the medical suite we prepared upstairs. He never reaches a hospital. Elena's mind stuttered, replayed the words. Parsed their meaning. Murder. They were planning murder. What about the server? James asked. The girl pouring his water? Silence stretched. Heavy. Terrible. Collateral damage. Derek's tone carried no more emotion than if he were discussing weather. If she sees anything, she goes down too. I'll make sure the East Hall cameras are looped. Clean execution. No witnesses. The girl pouring his water. Elena looked down at her uniform, the water pitcher she'd carried to table 1. The assignment sheet that listed her name next to Sterling's table number. They were talking about killing her. The hallway spun. Her training screamed at her to run, to get out, to disappear into the New York night and pretend she'd heard nothing. Survival instinct. Primal. Overwhelming. But another voice cut through the panic. Her father's voice. Thomas Brooks in the hospital bed. Final week before the cancer took him. Weak but lucid. Holding her hand with fingers that felt like bird bones. Elena, I know you dropped out for me. I know what that cost. But don't let fear make you small. You've got a fire in you. Like your grandmother. She threw rocks at the black and tans in Dublin. Use that fire. She'd promised him. Through tears. I'm scared, Dad. He'd smiled, that heartbreaking smile. Good. Brave people are always scared. They just don't let it stop them. 2 days later, he died. Now Elena stood in a service hallway, hearing 2 men plot murder. One of them a desperate father she almost pitied. The other a killer who saw her as an acceptable loss. Footsteps approached. Panic flooded her system. Electric. Paralyzing. She couldn't run back toward the ballroom without being seen. Couldn't stay here. Her eyes found salvation. Laundry chute door, slightly ajar, 3 feet away. She moved on instinct, silent, fast, slipped into the small alcove just as James and Derek walked past her hiding spot. So close she could smell Derek's cologne, could see the cold precision in his profile. Run the play when the entree drops. Derek's voice faded as they moved toward the ballroom. 9 p.m. sharp. Elena waited, heart trying to escape her chest, counted to 60, emerged from the chute on trembling legs, checked her cheap digital watch. 8:15 p.m. Was time 45 minutes until they killed Robert Sterling. 45 minutes until they killed her if she got in the way. She should run. Every survival instinct screamed it. Take the subway to Astoria. Disappear into her basement apartment. Pretend she'd heard nothing. Stay invisible. Stay alive. But her photographic memory wouldn't let her forget. Saw Robert Sterling's face. The sadness in his eyes. The genuine laugh. The man who'd built the library where her father read books and felt human. Where Elena studied for the GED and refused to give up. Saw James Thornton's hollow grief. Sarah's wheelchair. Desperation that turned love into murder. Saw Derek Stone's shark eyes. Calculating. Ready to kill without hesitation. And she heard her father. If you see something, You do something, even when it costs you. Elena pushed out of the alcove. Her hands shook, her whole body shook, but her mind clicked into focus. The photographic memory that cataloged everything. The pre-law training that taught her to think strategically. The fire her father said she carried. She needed a plan. The ballroom noise hit Elena like a physical wall when she pushed through the staff door. Laughter. Crystal clinking. String quartet playing Vivaldi. 300 people celebrating wealth and power while murder counted down in 45-minute increments. The cognitive dissonance made her dizzy. All this beauty, all this elegance, built on the backs of invisible people like her. And soon it would be a crime scene. Blood on marble floors, paramedics rushing, police tape, headlines. If she did nothing. Elena moved through the crowd with her water pitcher. Muscle memory, autopilot. Her brain worked through options with desperate speed. Option 1. Tell security. Impossible. Derek Stone was security. He controlled every guard in the building, every camera, every exit. Going to security meant walking into the predator's den. Option 2. Call 911. Her mind played it out. Young waitress claims billionaire about to be murdered by his best friend and head of security. With poison insulin. They'd think she was crazy. High on something. Attention-seeking. By the time they investigated, Robert Sterling would be dead. She'd be dismissed as a hysterical girl who watched too many crime shows. Option 3. Tell management. Management would alert security. Back to Derek Stone. Same result. Faster. Option 4. Fire alarm. Palm alarm. Pull the alarm for evacuation, but Derek and James would just postpone. Reschedule. And Elena would lose her job for false alarm. Lose her only source of income 5 days before eviction. They'd execute their plan next week, next month, whenever she wasn't there to interfere. Option 5. Direct warning to Robert Sterling. Elena watched table 1 across the ballroom. Derek stood behind Robert's chair like death's shadow. Those shark eyes tracked everything. If she approached, if she spoke to Sterling, if she did anything unusual, Derek would see, would act, would eliminate the threat, collateral damage, clean execution, no witnesses. She'd be dead before dessert. The options collapsed into impossible choices. Every path led to failure, to death, to becoming another statistic in a system designed to protect powerful men who committed perfect crimes. Elena's vision tunneled. Her breath came short. Panic attack threatening. She recognized the symptoms from the hospital, from watching her father die by inches. From the moment the doctor said there was nothing more they could do, she forced herself to breathe. 4 counts in, hold, 4 counts out, repeat. A technique from the self-defense classes her father made her take. Krav Maga, practical, brutal, designed for survival. Panic makes you pray, the instructor had said. Control the breath, control the mind, control the outcome. Elena controlled her breath. Let her mind clear. Let the panic recede. Then she saw it. The only option that might work. The only plan crazy enough to create the chaos she needed. She wouldn't warn Robert Sterling with words. She'd warn him with action. Create a distraction so massive that Derek couldn't react fast enough. So public that killing her would expose the conspiracy. So violent in its disruption that Sterling would have no choice but to run. The plan crystallized with terrible clarity. She would drop the tray. Not accidentally, deliberately, theatrically. Turn service into spectacle. Create chaos from precision. And in that chaos, whisper 5 words that would save a life or end hers. Run when I drop the tray. Elena looked at Robert Sterling, really looked. Saw past the billion-dollar net worth, past the corporate titan facade. Saw a 62-year-old man who'd lost his wife, who tried to do good in a world that rewarded cruelty, who had no idea his best friend wanted him dead. A man who'd built a library where her father found dignity, where Elena found hope when Columbia became impossible, where Thomas Brooks's name would live in the community he'd loved. She thought of her father in the hospital bed. Final days. Morphine couldn't touch the pain, but he smiled anyway. Elena, promise me something. Anything, Dad. Don't be invisible. Don't let them make you disappear. You matter. Your voice matters. Use it. She'd nodded through tears, made promises she didn't think she could keep, watched him slip away, buried him with debts that would follow her for decades. And now she stood in a ballroom, invisible to everyone except the killers who saw her as an obstacle, a thing to be removed. Collateral damage. Thomas Brooks hadn't raised collateral damage. He'd raised a fighter. Elena checked her watch. 8:45 p.m. 15 minutes. She set down the water pitcher, walked to the kitchen with purpose, replacing panic. Found Pierre, the sous chef, orchestrating controlled chaos. Table 1 wants their entrees now, she lied smoothly. Mr. Sterling isn't feeling well. Wants to eat and leave early. Pierre cursed in French, started plating filet mignon with angry efficiency. The timing. Always they change the timing. Elena grabbed the massive silver serving tray, felt its weight. 15 pounds of sterling silver, 4 porcelain plates, crystal gravy boats, 6 steak knives. Loaded for maximum impact. Her hands trembled. She gripped the tray tighter, walked back into the ballroom. 8:52 p.m. The string quartet played something haunting, melancholic, appropriate for a funeral march disguised as celebration. Elena approached table 1. Derek Stone's eyes locked onto her immediately. Suspicious, wrong timing, wrong server, wrong everything. But she smiled. Invisible girl doing invisible work. He saw what he expected to see. Nothing threatening, just a waitress bringing food. She positioned herself at Robert Sterling's right side. The tray balanced on her left hand. Heavy, unwieldy, perfect. Robert laughed at something James said. Genuine, unaware, trusting the friend who'd ordered his death. Elena leaned in, ostensibly to place a steak knife. Her lips barely moved, voice thread thin, barely audible over the quartet. Mr. Sterling, don't look at me. Robert Sterling's laughter died. Confusion flickered across his face. 62 years of boardroom poker instincts told him something was wrong. Someone had spoken. The waitress. But waitresses didn't speak. Not like that. Not with that desperate urgency. He started to turn, to look at her. The insulin is poison. Elena's whisper cut like a blade. Stone is going to kill you. Time fractured into crystalline moments. Robert's body froze. Every muscle locked. His photographic memory for faces kicked in. Scanned the girl beside him. Young, terrified, eyes that had seen too much grief for 24 years. But telling the truth. He'd spent 4 decades reading people. This girl believed every word she'd said. His gaze flickered to Derek Stone, 6 feet behind his chair, hand hovering near jacket. Those dead eyes suddenly looked different. Predatory, calculating, waiting. Robert's mind supplied memories he'd buried. 8 years ago, Catherine's funeral. Rain falling like tears from a gray sky. Derek offering condolences. Brake failure, sir. Terrible accident. James beside him, hollow-eyed. Both of them wet from rain, or maybe guilt. Had they killed Catherine too? The thought hit like electricity, made his hands grip the armrests, made his heart rate spike, made everything click into terrible focus. He started to speak. Who are you? Run when I drop the tray. The girl's voice carried absolute certainty. Command, the kind of voice that comes from people who've faced death and refused to blink. Robert opened his mouth to respond. Elena's fingers released. Physics took over. The tray fell. 15 pounds of sterling silver, 4 porcelain plates loaded with 8-ounce filet mignon, 2 crystal gravy boats filled with burgundy reduction, 6 steak knives, all of it accelerating at 9.8 meters per second squared toward Italian marble flooring. The sound was apocalyptic. Silver hit stone like artillery. The crash detonated through the ballroom, shattered the string quartet mid-phrase, silenced 300 conversations instantly. Every head turned, every eye locked on table 1. Porcelain exploded, plates became shrapnel. White ceramic fragments scattered like shattered stars. Gravy erupted. Burgundy reduction arced through air. Splattered across $30,000 evening gowns. Splashed onto bespoke tuxedos. Stained white tablecloths with Jackson Pollock violence. Steak knives clattered. Steel on marble. Percussion of chaos. The sound echoed, bounced, multiplied. Someone screamed. Then everyone screamed. Elena threw herself forward, made it look like a trip, like she'd lost her balance and fallen. But her shoulder hit Robert Sterling's chest with linebacker force. Calculated impact. Precise angle. Knocked him sideways out of his chair. Sent him sprawling across gravy-slicked marble. To the witnesses, it looked like an accident. A clumsy waitress knocking over a billionaire while trying to save him from the mess. In reality, it was an extraction. A rescue. A tactical maneuver disguised as catastrophe. Elena landed on top of Robert, mouth next to his ear, voice harsh with urgency. Go. Service doors, now. Derek Stone's hand went inside his jacket, muscle memory, training, and going for the weapon. His face showed no concern about the mess, no surprise, only cold calculation. His eyes found Robert on the floor, found the girl on top of him, saw the extraction for what it was. Into his lapel mic, voice cutting through chaos. Secure the target. He's having a medical episode. Medical team to table 1. Repeat, medical episode. 3 men in dark suits detached from the ballroom perimeter, moving fast, converging on table 1 with military precision. Robert Sterling's mind caught up to his body. Adrenaline flooded his system. Survival instinct, 40 years dormant, suddenly screaming. He looked at the waitress, this stranger who just destroyed her job to warn him. Looked at Derek reaching for a gun, looked at James's face. His best friend, his brother, seeing guilt written there. Horror, knowledge. They really were trying to kill him. The realization hit like a physical blow. 35 years of friendship, partnership, brotherhood, all of it a lie, or worse, all of it real once, then corrupted, twisted into something monstrous. Elena hauled Robert to his feet. Gravy made the marble treacherous. They slipped, caught balance. Her hand gripped his sleeve with desperate strength. Service doors, move! Robert's brain overrode his shock. Businessman instincts kicked in. Assess situation, calculate options, execute decision. He'd built an empire on those skills. Now they might keep him alive. My security team, Elena's voice cut through his protest. Raw, desperate, absolutely certain. They are the threat. No time to argue, no time to think. The 3 suits were 20 feet away. Derek Stone's hand emerged from his jacket, not holding a gun, not yet, but ready, waiting. Calculating angles, acceptable losses. Elena dragged Robert toward the concealed staff door. Her small frame generated shocking force. Adrenaline, terror, determination. She moved like someone who'd trained for violence, who knew how to survive. They burst through the swinging doors into the kitchen. Heat, steam, shouting chefs. The controlled chaos of dinner service exploded into actual chaos. Elena and Robert crashed through like a bomb going off. Sent a cart of dirty dishes flying. Created obstacle behind them. Pierre the sous chef waved a ladle like a weapon, face purple with rage, shouting in French and English. Mademoiselle, what are you doing? You cannot. Fire, Elena screamed. Fire in the ballroom. Everyone out. Magic word, panic word, the word that turned professional kitchens into stampeding herds. Chefs abandoned stations, grabbed fire extinguishers, headed for exits, creating human shields. Chaos, confusion. The 3 suits hit the kitchen seconds behind, but now they faced 20 panicking kitchen workers. Smoke, steam, obstacles. Their clean execution had become a nightmare of variables. Derek Stone's voice roared over the chaos, commanding, authoritative. Medical emergency. Sterling is having an episode. He's delirious. Stop them. Guests in the ballroom heard, saw the suits chasing, saw Elena dragging Robert. Couldn't process. Was this a kidnapping? A medical emergency? A corporate coup? Confusion was Elena's weapon. She wielded it like a blade. They crashed through the loading dock door. Cold November air hit like a slap. 58th Street at night. Rain falling, yellow cabs in gridlock. Neon chaos. The pulse of New York after dark. Behind them, running footsteps. Derek's men closing distance. Then the sound that changed everything. A suppressed pistol. Professional grade, barely louder than a cough. The brick wall 6 inches from Robert's head exploded. Chips scattered. Dust. The bullet hole stared at him like an eye. Undeniable. Final. Proof. They were really trying to kill him. Robert froze. Stared at that hole. His entire reality restructured. 35 years of trust, of partnership, of believing he knew James, knew Derek, knew his own life, all of it shattered like that brick. Fragmented. Destroyed, rebuilt into nightmare. Run, Elena screamed, grabbed his hand, hauled him forward. Move or die. Robert's legs obeyed before his brain caught up. They sprinted down the alley, rain-soaked, gravy-stained, terror-fueled, splashing through puddles, his 62-year-old lungs burning, heart hammering, body remembering what it felt like to run for your life. They emerged onto 6th Avenue. Light, traffic, humanity. Robert's hand shot up automatically. Taxi! Elena yanked him back. Hard. No taxis. They track credit cards. You don't have cash. Subway. Robert stared at her. The subway? His voice cracked with disbelief. I haven't taken the subway since 1982. Welcome back to reality, Mr. Sterling. Elena pulled him toward the 57th Street station entrance, down wet stairs, into the fluorescent underground. Robert looked at the turnstile, the MetroCard reader, technology he'd funded through infrastructure bills but never personally used. The barrier might as well have been Mount Everest. Elena vaulted over. One smooth motion, athletic, practiced. Jump it! I can't jump that! Jump it or die, Mr. Sterling. Behind them, top of the stairs, Derek's men appeared, scanning, spotting, running. Robert Sterling, $12 billion. Real estate titan, philanthropist, visionary, hiked up his muddy tuxedo pants like a teenager climbing a fence, scrambled over the turnstile with zero grace. All dignity shredded, landed hard on the other side, his hips screamed, his pride shattered. But he was over. Elena grabbed him, hauled him onto the waiting train. Doors chimed, warning, closing. Derek's men hit the turnstiles as the doors hissed shut. The train lurched, accelerated, pulled into tunnel darkness. Through the window, Robert watched the men recede, watched the platform disappear, watched his old life vanish into black. The subway car rocked, screeched. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting everyone in sickly yellow. Graffiti covered every surface. Tags, territorial markings. The archaeology of a city most tourists never saw. Robert Sterling slumped against the door, slid down until he hit the floor, gasping, clutching his chest, his tuxedo shirt soaked through with rain and sweat and gravy. Muddy, ruined, his $20,000 suit looked like garbage. He looked like garbage. Elena stood over him, chest heaving, white uniform stained brown and red, hair plastered to her face. She looked like she'd survived a war. Maybe she had. The other passengers ignored them. Homeless man sleeping, teenager with headphones, young couple arguing in Spanish. Night shift workers too tired to care. In New York, you learn not to see, not to get involved. Mind your business. Stay invisible. Robert's breathing slowly stabilized. He looked up at the girl. Really looked. Saw past the uniform, past the gravy stains. Saw someone who'd thrown away everything to save a stranger. Someone brave enough to stand between a billionaire and a bullet. His voice came hoarse, broken. You saved my life. Elena wiped rain from her forehead, tried for humor through the terror. Yeah, well, don't fire me. Despite everything, despite the nightmare. Robert laughed, short, sharp, edged with hysteria. The absurdity of it. Fired. She just committed corporate suicide. Assault? Property destruction. Whatever lawyers would call tackling a billionaire and destroying a charity gala. Fired was the least of her problems. His hand moved to his jacket pocket. Phone. I need to call Police Commissioner Daniels. Frank's a good man. Don't. Elena's hand shot out, grabbed his wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. Just don't. Robert looked at her, confused. We need police. We need. Stone is ex-NYPD. Elena's voice carried absolute certainty. Facts, not theories. If you turn that phone on, they triangulate your location in seconds. If you call police, how do you know the person who shows up isn't on Stone's payroll? How do you know Commissioner Daniels himself isn't compromised? The words hit Robert like ice water. Paranoia, conspiracy thinking. Except she was right. Derek had been NYPD for 20 years before Robert hired him. Had connections, friends, people who owed him favors, people who might look the other way. Robert's hand trembled, holding the phone like it might explode. Slowly, carefully, he put it back in his pocket. So what do we do? His voice sounded small, lost. I can't hide in the subway forever. We go to my place. Elena's matter-of-fact tone somehow made it real. Plan, strategy, survival. It's off the books. No one knows about it. We figure out our next move there. Robert blinked, tried to process. Where do you live? Astoria, just a few more stops. The train rattled on, Queens-bound, carrying a billionaire and a waitress into uncertain territory. Away from Manhattan, away from power, into the real New York, where people like Elena lived. 30 minutes later, they emerged onto rain-slicked streets in Astoria. Modest neighborhood. Row houses, small shops, trees lining sidewalks. The New York that tourists never photographed. where real people lived real lives with real problems. Elena led him down a quiet block, stopped at a basement apartment, rusted gate, 3 deadbolts. She unlocked them methodically, pushed the door open. Flickering fluorescent light revealed a tiny studio, pull-out couch, kitchenette, bathroom door that probably didn't quite close. And books, stacks everywhere, law textbooks, corporate law, criminal procedure, constitutional rights, evidence scattered like archaeological artifacts of abandoned dreams. The apartment smelled of vanilla candles and old paper, cheap but clean, desperate but dignified. Robert stepped inside, the door locked behind him. 3 deadbolts, one by one. Click, 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 each one sealing him away from the world he knew, the world that wanted him dead. His eyes found the photo wall. Elena and an older man, her father, construction hard hat, weathered face, kind eyes. The Columbia acceptance photo, both of them grinning, hope captured in pixels. Another photo, hospital room. The same man, bald from chemotherapy, skeletal, but smiling bravely. Elena beside him trying to smile back, failing. Last photo, just Elena, alone, at a funeral. Rain, black dress, eyes empty. Robert's throat tightened. He knew that look. Had worn it himself 8 years ago. Catherine's funeral. The moment when you realize the world keeps turning, even though yours just stopped. He picked up a law textbook. Corporate law. Heavy. Expensive. Margins filled with notes in neat handwriting. Questions. Observations. The work of a mind that thought deeply. Carefully. You're a law student. Elena turned from the kitchenette, tossed him a bottle of water. Was. Columbia. Dropped out junior year when Dad got sick. The simple words carried oceans of pain. Robert caught the water, tried to find something to say that wasn't platitudes, that acknowledged the sacrifice, the loss, the fundamental unfairness of a system that forced children to choose between education and keeping parents alive. I'm sorry. Inadequate. Useless. But true. Your father. Lung cancer. Elena's voice stayed flat, controlled, walls up. 4 months ago. Medical bills don't pay themselves. So, here I am. She gestured at the tiny apartment, the law books gathering dust, the life she'd traded for more time with a dying man, the American healthcare system's cruelty captured in one basement studio. Robert sat heavily on the pull-out couch. It creaked, protested his weight. This furniture wasn't built for billionaires. It was built for people who bought secondhand, who made do, who survived. Guilt crashed over him, wave after wave. He'd built an empire, accumulated billions, funded charities, cut ribbons at library openings, felt good about himself, thought he was helping. But he'd never seen this, never understood this. The girl forced to abandon dreams because healthcare tied survival to employment, to wealth, to luck. The system he'd benefited from, profited from, never questioned. I have a scholarship fund. The words came automatic, defensive. For legal studies. Elena's laugh held no humor. I applied, twice. Rejected both times, Sarah. Robert flinched. Why, ma? Didn't have the right background. Elena opened the fridge, pretended to look inside, really hiding her face. Translation, no connections, no networking, just grades and need. Turns out that's not enough. The accusation hung unspoken. Your charity helps people you can photograph, people who make good stories for annual reports. Not girls like me, not the ones who actually need it. Robert wanted to argue, to defend, to explain committee processes and application criteria and things beyond his control. But she was right. He'd created the fund, put his name on it, smiled for cameras, then let other people decide who deserved help. Let bureaucracy filter out the desperate, the messy, the ones without perfect narratives. People like Elena Brooks, who'd sacrificed everything and gotten nothing, except the chance to save his life. I didn't know. Weak, true, useless. That's the problem with charity from the top. Elena closed the fridge, faced him, eyes hard. You don't see the people at the bottom clearly. The words cut, precision blade, opening wounds Robert hadn't known existed, exposing failures he'd hidden behind good intentions. Before he could respond, before he could defend or apologize or process. Elena shifted, became tactical, focused. We need to talk strategy. The signing is tomorrow, 9 a.m. at Sterling Tower, right? Robert nodded, grateful for the subject change. Business he understood. If I'm not there to sign the charitable trust documents, the board retains control for another fiscal year. They'll liquidate the affordable housing division by noon, sell it to a Dubai conglomerate for $8 billion. So we have 9 hours to keep you alive and get you into that building. Can't just walk in. Derek controls building security, retinal scanners, elevator locks. The moment my face hits a camera, he locks down the building. I'm trapped. Elena paced, thinking, her training showing. Legal mind working through problems. Is there another way in? Robert hesitated, then remembered. There was a tunnel, Prohibition era. We found it during construction in '98, connected to the basement. I was supposed to seal it with a concrete. But you didn't. Historian at heart, couldn't destroy a piece of New York's past, so I hid it. Behind a false wall in the laundry distribution room, Elena stopped pacing, looked at him. Does Stone know? Only two people knew, me and the architect. He died 10 years ago. Hope flickered in Elena's eyes, strategy forming. But first, evidence. You said Stone swapped your insulin pen. She pulled a napkin from her apron. Careful, deliberate. You still have it? Robert reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out the silver medical case. Sleek, expensive, necessary. His constant companion, the thing keeping him alive, except tonight it would have killed him. He gave it back right before dinner. Robert opened the case, showed the injection pen, expected me to use it after the meal. Elena took it, wrapped in the napkin, handling it like evidence. Because it was. Murder weapon. Assassination tool. Proof of conspiracy. This has his prints. Her voice carried grim satisfaction. We need it analyzed. Prove it's poison. It's almost 10 p.m. Where I know someone. Elena allowed herself a small smile. Vet student at NYU. Works night shift at a 24-hour animal hospital in Long Island City. They have a toxicology lab. Robert stared. You want to test an assassination weapon intended for a billionaire at a veterinary clinic? You have a better idea, Mr. Sterling? Silence. Because no, he didn't. His world of power and connections had collapsed. Phone traced if he turned it on. Police compromised. Security corrupted. The entire infrastructure he'd built and funded and trusted now weaponized against him. His only ally was a 24-year-old waitress with a photographic memory and a dead father and law school debt, who knew a vet student, who had a plan. Robert looked around the tiny apartment, at the photo of Thomas Brooks, the man who'd built his library, who'd raised this fierce daughter, who'd taught her to remember everything, to use fire when needed. He looked at Elena, really saw her. Not the waitress, not the help, the person, the fighter, the one who'd thrown herself between him and death without hesitation. Why did you do it? The question came raw, honest. You didn't know me. Elena walked to the photo wall, touched her father's image, gentle, reverent. You're not a stranger. My dad helped build Brooks' library, your library, where I studied for my GED after I dropped out, where he spent lunch breaks reading, feeling human. He loved that place. She turned, met Robert's eyes. So yeah, I knew you. Maybe not personally, but I knew what you built mattered. What it meant to people like Dad, people the system forgets. Tears threatened. She blinked them back, walls up. And Dad taught me, if you see something, you do something, even when it's terrifying, even when it costs everything. Robert felt something crack in his chest, the shell of cynicism, of boardroom calculation, of measuring everything in returns on investment. This girl had risked her life, her freedom, her future, for principles her father taught her, for a stranger who'd never noticed she existed, for the belief that some things mattered more than survival. Thank you, Elena. She shook her head, dismissive. Save it for after we survive. Let's go test some poison. They left the apartment, 3 deadbolts locking behind them, stepped into rain-soaked Astoria night, a billionaire and a waitress, heading for a veterinary clinic to prove murder, to save lives, to fight back against the powerful men who thought they could kill with impunity. The train rattled toward Long Island City, carrying them toward proof, toward danger, toward the next move in a game where the stakes were measured in lives and billions, and the fundamental question of whether justice existed for people who didn't have power. Elena Brooks and Robert Sterling sat side by side on plastic seats. Strangers 12 hours ago, allies now. bound by circumstance and courage, and the simple belief that sometimes doing the right thing mattered more than doing the safe thing. Outside the window, New York flashed past, city of dreamers, city of survivors, city where waitresses became heroes and billionaires learned what it meant to run for your life. The train carried them forward, into uncertainty, into danger, into the long night where they'd either prove conspiracy or become its next victims. Behind them, the Plaza Hotel. Scene of the crime that hadn't happened, where Derek Stone and James Thornton regrouped, planned, hunted, ahead, a veterinary clinic, a toxicology lab, scientific proof that would change everything, if they lived long enough to use it. Queens Plaza at midnight looked like a ghost town built on broken dreams. Industrial warehouses loomed against the skyline. Rusted train tracks cut through empty lots. Sleek new condos rose incongruously between abandoned factories. The collision of old New York and new money. Gentrification written in steel and glass. Rain had turned from downpour to mist. Cold. Clinging. The kind that seeped into bones and stayed there. Elena and Robert walked quickly, heads down, a waitress and a billionaire in muddy formal wear. Invisible in the way homeless people were invisible. Too desperate looking to be noticed. Too pathetic to be threatening. Robert shivered in his ruined tuxedo shirt. No jacket. He'd discarded it blocks ago. Too recognizable. Too expensive. Now he just looked like someone who'd had a very bad night, which was accurate. How much further? His teeth chattered. Adrenaline crash hitting hard. 62-year-old body reminding him it wasn't built for sprinting through New York at midnight. 2 blocks. Elena scanned the street, looking for black SUVs, for lingering pedestrians, for anything out of place. Paranoia had become survival skill. Walk faster, you look suspicious. I look suspicious? Robert's laugh came bitter. I look like I've been mugged. In a corporate sense, you have been. Fair point. They reached a nondescript brick building, neon sign buzzing in the window. Red letters half burned out. Queens Plaza 24-hour veterinarian emergency. Elena rang the buzzer, crackle of intercom, sleepy voice. We're at capacity for non-emergencies. Unless your cat is literally on fire, come back in the morning. Ryan, it's Elena. Open the door. Bust pause volume. Longer than comfortable. Emotion. Oh, and then recognition. And Elena Brooks? Haven't seen you since the dropout party. What's going on? Buzz, lock clicked. They stumbled inside. The waiting room smelled of antiseptic and wet dog and stale coffee. Fluorescent lights hummed. Somewhere in back, a dog barked. Another whined. The sounds of animal suffering that never stopped at emergency clinics. A young man emerged from the back, late 20s, messy brown hair, thick-rimmed glasses. Scrubs that looked 3 sizes too big and stained with things Robert didn't want to identify. Ryan Parker adjusted his glasses, blinked at Elena, then at the soaking wet older man beside her. Elena, who's the guy? Ryan, this is Robert. Someone tried to kill him tonight with this. Elena pulled the insulin pen from her pocket, still wrapped in the napkin. Careful. Precise. We think it's digoxin. We need your toxicology equipment. Ryan rubbed his eyes. Processing, not processing. We don't do human testing. This is for duxicum. And cats, and once a ferret. Also, no. The answer is no. Elena stepped forward, grabbed his arm, the gesture of someone cashing in a debt. Ryan, remember when your mom had the stroke? Who sat with you in the ER for 18 hours? Who helped you fill out the Medicaid paperwork when you were drowning? Ryan's face shifted, gratitude mixed with guilt. Low blow, Brooks. If we can't prove this pen is poison, he's dead. I'm dead. Please. Ryan looked at Elena, really looked, saw the fear beneath the determination, the desperation, the truth. His friend wouldn't ask unless it was life or death. He sighed, the weight of medical ethics versus personal loyalty crushing him. If my boss finds out, I lose my residency. You know that, right? I'll pay your tuition. Robert's voice cut through, desperate, sincere. All 4 years, plus your mother's medical bills, whatever she needs. Ryan stared at him, laughed nervously. Sure, random guy in a muddy tuxedo. Right. Then he saw Robert's face, the absolute seriousness, the willingness to promise anything. You're not joking. I'm not joking. Ryan looked between them, Elena's pleading eyes, Robert's shell-shocked expression, the insulin pen wrapped like evidence. Something was deeply wrong, but Elena had saved his mother. had navigated the nightmare of emergency healthcare bureaucracy when he couldn't think straight. Debts came due, even illegal ones. Come on back before I change my mind, Nate. The lab was small, cluttered. Microscopes and centrifuges crowded metal tables. Anatomy posters of choosing cats covered walls. A skeleton of something that might have been a horse hung in the corner. The machinery of veterinary medicine, designed for animals, about to be used for something else entirely. Ryan took the pen with gloved hands, his training overriding his fear. Careful, methodical, extracted a tiny amount of clear liquid, placed it in the spectrometer. This machine usually diagnoses antifreeze poisoning in golden retrievers. He typed on the keyboard, ran the analysis. But digoxin has a very specific molecular signature. If it's in there, the reading will be unmistakable. They waited. The machine hummed, clinical, indifferent, measuring molecules while lives hung in balance. Robert sat on a metal stool, removed his muddy jacket, hung it on a chair. His white dress shirt was translucent with rain and sweat. He looked smaller without the armor of expensive tailoring. Just a man, scared, confused, betrayed. What were you studying? His voice came quiet, conversation to fill the terrible silence of waiting. Before you dropped out. Elena leaned against the counter, arms crossed, defensive posture. Pre-law, wanted to be a defense attorney, fight for people who couldn't afford the big firms. Noble goal. Expensive goal. Elena's tone carried sharp edges. Turns out the little guy usually runs out of money before justice happens. Funny how that works. Robert heard the accusation beneath the words. The system he'd profited from. The inequality he'd ignored while cutting ribbons at charity events. The fundamental unfairness that forced capable people to abandon dreams because they were born without connections. The Sterling Foundation Scholarship Fund was supposed to help people like you. It didn't. Elena's voice stayed flat. Factual. The selection committee wanted perfect GPAs and leadership awards and recommendation letters from senators. Not girls who worked 3 jobs and missed class to drive their dads to chemotherapy appointments. Each word landed like a punch. Robert had no defense. He'd created the fund, put his name on it, smiled for photographs, then delegated everything to administrators who filtered applicants through criteria designed to exclude the desperate, the messy, the ones who actually needed help. I didn't know the details. I should have. Yeah, you should have. Silence stretched, heavy with unspoken truths, the distance between billionaire philanthropy and actual human need. The gap Robert had never bothered to measure until tonight, until a waitress he'd never noticed saved his life and showed him what invisibility really meant. The computer beeped, harsh, urgent. Ryan spun in his chair, face gone pale. Holy hell. What is it? Robert stood, heart hammering. Ryan pointed at the screen, graph spiking violent red. Numbers that made no sense to Robert, but clearly meant something terrible to the vet student. This is supposed to be insulin? Ryan's voice shook. Because this is almost pure digoxin. The concentration is insane. If you injected this, you go into cardiac arrest within 3 minutes. It's not just poison. It's an execution cocktail. The room tilted. Robert grabbed the counter, steadied himself. The abstract threat became concrete, scientific proof. Derek Stone had prepared to murder him. Calculated dosage, chosen method, swapped the pen with professional precision. How long had they planned this? Weeks? Months? How many times had Robert used that pen in front of Derek? Trusting, oblivious, one injection away from death. Can you print that? Elena's voice cut through his spiral. Time-stamped? Documented. Yeah, Ryan's fingers flew over keyboard. Printer word. But guys, you need to see this. He grabbed a remote, pointed at the small TV mounted in the corner. Local news, 24-hour cycle. Currently showing Robert's face. Unflattering photo. Looked angry. Unhinged. Ryan turned up the volume. The anchor wore practiced concern. Professional sympathy. Breaking news. Billionaire Robert Sterling missing after violent episode at charity gala. NYPD sources say Sterling assaulted multiple staff members before fleeing into the night. Family spokesperson James Thornton issued this statement. The screen cut to footage. James outside the plaza, hair disheveled, eyes red. Oscar-worthy performance. Robert has been battling early onset dementia for months. James's voice broke. Perfect crack of emotion. We begged him to seek treatment. He refused. Tonight he became violent. Dangerous. We just want him home safe. We're working with security consultant Derek Stone to locate him for urgent medical intervention. The camera pushed closer, caught James wiping tears. Please, if anyone sees Robert, don't approach. He's confused, potentially harmful to himself and others. Contact the tip line immediately. The anchor returned, serious expression. Police have also released this sketch of an unidentified female accomplice. The image appeared, rough police sketch, but unmistakably Elena. Her features, her build, close enough to be recognizable. The woman is believed to be a Plaza Hotel employee who may have facilitated Sterling's escape. If you have any information, please contact authorities. Robert stared at the screen, face purple with rage. Dementia? Assaulted staff? James is on national television lying. The words came strangled. Betrayal cut deeper than attempted murder. 35 years of friendship, brotherhood, all of it weaponized, turned into a public narrative that painted Robert as crazy, dangerous, unreliable. Elena's mind worked faster, saw the strategy. They're controlling the story, making you the villain. When you try to speak, nobody listens. You're just a demented old man with persecution fantasies. And if police find me, they have legal justification to sedate you for your own safety, except the sedation will be permanent. Robert's legs gave out. He sat heavily, the full scope of the conspiracy crystallizing. They hadn't just planned to kill him, they'd planned the aftermath. The narrative, the cover-up, medical emergency, tragic but natural, no investigation, no questions, just grief and sympathy and business as usual. Perfect murder. On screen, the news cycled to weather. Rain continuing through morning, temperatures dropping, as if the world cared about weather while Robert's life burned. Ryan pointed at the window. Guys, black sedan in the alley, someone's outside smoking. He's looking at this building. Elena moved to the window. Careful. Peered through blinds. Her heart sank. One of Derek's men. She recognized him from the kitchen chase. Leather jacket, military posture, cigarette cherry glowing in darkness. Watching the clinic. Waiting. They found us. Her voice stayed calm, training overriding panic. How? Ryan's face showed realization. Horror. The toxicology test. I logged it in the cloud database. It auto-syncs. If Derek has access to medical networks, he'd get an alert. Specific chemical signature. Location timestamp. Everything. We're trapped. Robert stood, businessman brain taking over. Assess situation, calculate options. Front entrance is exposed to street. Back alley is covered. Elena's eyes tracked the room. Looking for options, found ceiling tiles. Drop ceiling. Roof access? Ryan nodded. Maintenance hatch. But this building connects to the old warehouse next door. You'd have to jump the gap. How far? 4 feet, maybe 5. 2-story drop if you miss. Robert looked at his 62-year-old body, legs still shaking from the earlier sprint, hip aching from the turnstile vault. You're joking. Better than a bullet. Elena was already moving, dragging a metal cabinet under the hatch. Ryan, wipe the security footage. Do it now. Way ahead of you than Ryan's fingers flew, deleting, erasing, covering tracks. Take the rubbing alcohol and lighter. Back exit dumps you near the rail yard. Elena grabbed supplies, climbed onto the cabinet, pushed ceiling tiles aside. The crawl space above smelled of dust and decades. She pulled herself up, turned, extended hand to Robert. Come on. Below them, the back door rattled, someone testing the lock. Robert climbed, undignified, grunting with effort, his body protesting every movement. But fear was excellent motivation. Elena hauled him into the crawl space just as the back door crashed open. Clear the rooms, voice below. Boots on linoleum. Derek's team sweeping the clinic. Elena and Robert crawled across ceiling joists, moving as quietly as possible, trying not to breathe too loud. Dust made Robert want to cough. He swallowed it, kept moving, following Elena's small frame through darkness. They reached the roof access hatch. Elena pushed it open. Cold rain hit their faces. Fresh air. They climbed out onto black Dubar roof. Slick. Treacherous. The warehouse loomed beside them, brick structure, 4 feet away, 2 feet lower. The gap looked enormous. The drop to concrete alley looked fatal. It's not far. Elena's voice carried false confidence. Just step and push. Robert looked at the gap, looked at her. I can't believe I'm doing this. Belief is optional. Jumping is mandatory. No time to argue. Behind them, voices in the clinic, searching, close. Robert took 3 steps back, ran forward, launched himself into empty air. 62 years of country club tennis and golf did nothing to prepare him for this. He flew, fell, hands grasped desperately, hit the warehouse roof hard, shoulder screaming, hip exploding with pain, but alive. On the other side, Elena followed, graceful, athletic, landed like she'd trained for rooftop parkour. Maybe she had. Krav Maga, self-defense. Her father had prepared her for survival. They scrambled across the warehouse roof, down a rusted fire escape, metal groaning under their weight, dropped into a side street blocks from the clinic, sirens wailing in the distance. Police, fire, Derek's cleanup crew. They huddled under a closed deli awning, rain pounding, both gasping, soaked, exhausted, but alive, for now. Robert Sterling had built an empire on strategic thinking. 40 years of boardroom battles, hostile takeovers, market manipulation, corporate warfare fought with contracts and capital. He'd survived the crash of '87, the dot-com bubble, the housing collapse of 2008, had clawed his way from Hell's Kitchen poverty to penthouse wealth through one consistent skill, outthinking the opposition. Now, huddled under a deli awning at 2 a.m., soaking wet and hunted, that skill reignited. "We need a car," his voice steadied, executive mode engaging. "Can't walk to Manhattan, too exposed." "Traffic cameras," Elena countered immediately. "License plate readers. Derek owns the city's surveillance grid. You funded it. Remember the Safe City Initiative? Cameras on every corner, facial recognition, real-time tracking." Robert groaned. "I really need to stop funding infrastructure that tries to kill me." Despite everything, Elena almost smiled. Dark humor, the coping mechanism of people in impossible situations. She scanned the empty street, thinking, her legal training kicking in, problem solving, finding angles. Subway's risky. They'll be watching stations. Service tunnels are too slow. Bridges and tunnels have checkpoints. So we're trapped in Queens. No, Robert's voice changed, dropped. The predator emerging. Stop thinking like prey. Start thinking like a CEO. Lena looked at him, saw the transformation. The hunted billionaire disappearing, the corporate strategist taking control. This was Robert Sterling's natural habitat. Not running, planning, executing. Derek expects us to hide, to run to police or press. He's guarding the perimeter, watching escape routes, waiting for us to panic and make mistakes. So what do? We don't sneak past the guards. Robert's eyes glinted, rain dripping from silver hair, looking more alive than he had all night. We walked through the front door. Elena shook her head. "The building's a fortress. You said so yourself. For billionaires, but every fortress has servants' entrances." Understanding dawned on Elena's face, following his logic, seeing the plan form. Robert continued, voice gaining confidence. "Sterling Tower employs 5,000 people, but before executives arrive, who gets there first? Maintenance, cleaning crews, delivery drivers. Exactly, at 5 a.m. the loading bay is chaos. Produce trucks, linen services, waste management. I should know. I own half the companies. The strategy crystallized between them. Not hiding, not running, walking in disguised as invisible people. The workers nobody notices. The help. Sterling Commercial Laundry." Robert's smile turned predatory. "We service the tower every morning at 5:15. Driver makes rounds at diners beforehand. Breaks, coffee, routine. How do you know their schedule? I built the logistics system, optimized routes, maximized efficiency. Never thought I'd need to exploit it. They moved through Long Island City, hunting for the truck, found it outside an all-night diner. Massive box truck, blue and silver logo, Sterling Commercial Laundry, engine idling. Driver inside eating eggs and hash browns. Oblivious to the chaos his employer was experiencing. The back door had a keypad lock. Robert approached, punched in numbers. Red light blinked. "Master code. I memorized it 10 years ago." Red light again. "Access denied." "They change it every 6 months. Standard security protocol. I approved." Robert's laugh came bitter. "I'm being defeated by my own policies." Elena grabbed a piece of rebar from a nearby construction site, jammed it into the lock hasp, not trying to pick it, using physics, leverage, her whole body weight torquing the metal. The hasp screamed, bent, snapped. Not elegant, she pulled the broken lock free, but effective. Inside the truck, canvas carts overflowed with clean linens, white tablecloths, chef coats, aprons, the smell of industrial detergent, everything crisp, pressed, ready for the morning shift. They climbed in, buried themselves behind laundry carts just as the diner door opened. The driver walked to the truck, grabbed the back door handle, saw it unlatched. "Damn latch is broken again," muttered complaint. He slammed the door without looking inside, walked around front. Engine roared, truck lurched forward. Darkness, motion, the smell of detergent overwhelming in the enclosed space. Robert and Elena crouched behind carts, breathing quietly. The truck rocked and swayed, heading toward Manhattan, toward Sterling Tower, toward the heart of the conspiracy. In the darkness, Robert spoke, voice quiet, vulnerable. "If we make it, if I sign those papers, what happens to me?" Elena shifted, unseen in blackness. "What do you mean?" "I lose control of the company I built. The board dissolves, 60% of voting shares transfer to the charitable trust. I retire, walk away from 40 years of work." "You're giving up everything." "No," Robert's voice carried certainty. "I'm taking it back. I let men like Derek and James run my life while I played king. Made appearances, cut ribbons, signed papers I didn't read. Tonight is about remembering who I wanted to be, before the billions, before I forgot." Silence. The truck's engine filling the void. Elena's voice came soft. "Your wife, Catherine. You said she died 8 years ago." Robert's breath caught, the wound still raw. "Brake failure, West Side Highway. She was driving home from James' house." "From James's house?" The story spilled out, words Robert had never spoken aloud. Catherine finding discrepancies in quarterly reports. $2 million missing. Confronting James that night, accusing him of embezzlement. For Sarah's surgery. Experimental treatment in Switzerland that insurance denied. 2 days later, Catherine's brakes failed. She crashed. Died instantly. Sarah had been driving behind her, witnessed everything, the trauma compounding her physical paralysis. Psychological damage layering onto spinal cord injury. "I thought grief was making me paranoid." Robert's voice broke. "I buried my suspicions with Catherine, but tonight, learning James wants me dead too, I finally understand. He killed her, and Derek helped cover it up." Elena's hand found his in the darkness. Squeezed, human connection, acknowledgement of pain. She understood loss, understood the specific agony of preventable death, of systems failing people, of watching someone you love die because money and bureaucracy mattered more than lives. They didn't speak after that, just held hands in darkness, two people bound by tragedy, by conspiracy, by the desperate hope that maybe justice could exist, that maybe the powerful could be held accountable. The truck slowed, changed rhythm, echo of enclosed space, the Midtown Tunnel. "We're crossing into Manhattan," Elena whispered. The truck stopped, completely. Voices outside, muffled but authoritative. "Checkpoint," Robert breathed. "They're searching vehicles." The rolling door rattled, someone outside grabbing the handle. Elena and Robert froze, pressed deeper into laundry carts, made themselves small, invisible. The skills of prey animals, of people who'd learned survival meant not being seen. The door rolled up, flashlight beam cut through darkness, swept across canvas carts. Probing, searching. "Just laundry, officer." The driver's voice, nervous. Why was he nervous? "Deliveries for Sterling Tower and the Hyatt. Need to check the interior." Different voice, authority, badge and gun. "We have an alert for a fugitive. Robert Sterling, considered dangerous." The beam moved closer, methodical, professional. This wasn't cursory. This was thorough. Elena's hand tightened on the insulin pen in her pocket. Evidence. Proof. Useless as a weapon, but maybe valuable as leverage. Her other hand found Robert's. Held it. Steady pressure. "We survived this together, or not at all." Boots clanged onto the metal truck bed, heavy, deliberate. The guard was climbing inside. Cart moved, pushed aside. The guard clearing obstacles. Getting closer. 2 carts away, 1 cart away. Robert's mind raced. Calculated. They'd see him, recognize him. Alert Derek, game over. But maybe if they looked like they belonged, if they seemed routine. Boring, expected. He grabbed a white chef coat from the cart beside him, thrust another at Elena. Whispered so quiet it was almost telepathy. Put this on, trust me. They struggled into the coats, grabbed clipboards that miraculously sat in a side pocket of the nearest cart. Robert's business instinct. Always look like you have purpose, like you belong. Authority came from appearance more than fact. The last cart moved aside. Flashlight hit them full force, blinding. Robert squinted into the light, annoyed, not afraid, channeling every middle manager he'd ever met. Every frustrated supervisor dealing with delays and incompetence. Do you mind? We're trying to do inventory. This driver is 40 minutes late, and if the napkins aren't at the Waldorf by 6 a.m., it's my ass on the line. The guard paused. Beam wavered, his eyes adjusted, saw two people in white chef coats, holding clipboards, looking irritated about being interrupted, the uniform of invisible workers, the camouflage of the serving class. He didn't see a billionaire and a fugitive. Saw annoyed laundry workers, tired, overworked, just trying to finish their shift. But training kicked in. Verify, confirm. ID? Robert's irritation ratcheted higher. Perfect performance. Method acting born from genuine frustration. I don't carry my wallet in the back of a truck. You want to call my supervisor? Tell him you're the reason Sterling Commercial lost the Waldorf contract because you delayed the 5 a.m. delivery? Name's Henderson, by the way. I'll make sure to mention you specifically when I file the complaint. The threat hung in humid air. New York ran on connections, on not pissing off the wrong people. A checkpoint guard delaying service to a major hotel. Career-limiting move. The guard's flashlight lowered slightly, calculation visible on his face. Risk versus reward. These two looked harmless, looked legitimate, sounded angry in the specific way service workers sounded when dealing with bureaucratic obstacles. Worth losing his job over? Probably not. Clear, move it. The beam switched off, boots descended, rolling doors slammed shut. Darkness returned. Truck engine engaged, lurched forward, into Manhattan. Robert exhaled, breath he'd been holding for what felt like hours. His whole body trembled. Adrenaline crash, near miss, so close to discovery, to capture, to execution disguised as medical intervention. I haven't been that scared since the crash of '87. His voice shook. You're a dangerously good liar. Elena's tone mixed admiration and concern. I'm a businessman. It's the same skill set. The truck rumbled deeper into the city, toward Sterling Tower, toward confrontation, toward the moment where decades of trust would shatter publicly, where friendship would be revealed as murder conspiracy, where Robert would either reclaim his company or die trying. Elena shifted in darkness, voice small, vulnerable, the armor cracking. Robert, if we die today, I want you to know, my dad would have been proud I tried. He always said I had fire. I hope he was right. Robert found her hand again. Squeezed. He was right, and we're not dying. We're walking into that boardroom, I'm signing those papers, and then I'm making sure you finish Columbia law. That's not a promise, that's a contract. Don't make deals you can't honor. I built an empire on honoring deals. Robert's voice strengthened. This one's the most important I'll ever make. The truck's motion changed, slowing, backing up, beeping, the distinctive sound of reverse. They'd arrived. Sterling Tower loading dock, 5:15 a.m., right on schedule. The door would open soon. They'd step out into the belly of the building, into enemy territory, into the infrastructure Robert had built, that Derek now controlled, that James had weaponized. But they had advantages Derek didn't know about. Secret tunnels, hidden elevators, knowledge of the building's skeleton. And most importantly, they had each other. A billionaire who'd forgotten what it meant to fight. A waitress who'd never stopped fighting. Together they might survive. Together they might win. Or together they'd die trying to do something right in a world designed to reward the corrupt. The truck stopped. Engine cut. They heard the driver's door open. Close. Footsteps walking away. Soon the loading dock crew would open the back, would expect delivery workers. Elena and Robert grabbed their laundry cart, prepared to push it down the ramp, to blend into the morning chaos, to disappear into the crowd of invisible people who made the tower function. Ready? Elena whispered. Robert thought about Catherine, about Thomas Brooks, about all the people who'd been crushed by systems designed to protect the powerful, about Sarah in her wheelchair, about James's desperation twisted into murder, about Derek's cold calculation, about the fundamental question of whether justice could exist when wealth purchased immunity. Ready? The door rolled up. Morning light flooded in. Cold, gray. Dawn approaching but not arrived. The liminal hour when night workers finished and day workers began. When the invisible machinery of capitalism ground forward. Robert Sterling and Elena Brooks pushed their cart into the belly of the beast, into the tower that bore his name, that he'd built, that might become his tomb. But if they died, they'd die fighting, and sometimes that mattered more than winning. Sometimes the fight itself was the point. The loading dock smelled of diesel fumes and industrial ambition. Concrete stretched in every direction. Cavernous, cold. The belly of Sterling Tower where luxury began as labor, where produce became gourmet meals, where dirty linens transformed into crisp elegance, the invisible machinery that powered visible wealth. Workers in jumpsuits moved with practiced choreography, tossing trash bags into compactors, guiding forklifts loaded with supplies, shouting coordinates in Spanish and English in languages Robert had never bothered to learn. This was the foundation of his empire, the people he'd never seen, never thanked, never considered human until tonight, until Elena made him invisible too. They pushed their laundry cart down the metal ramp, wheels clattering, both keeping heads down, playing the part. Robert's heart hammered, but his face stayed neutral. Bored worker, another shift, another delivery, nothing to see. A foreman intercepted them, clipboard, hard hat, built like a linebacker, authority in every gesture. You're late. Service elevator B is backed up. Take C and don't scratch the paint in the hallway or I'm writing you up. Elena's voice dropped. Rougher, Queen's accent thicker. Sorry, boss. Tunnel traffic was murder. The word choice made Robert flinch internally. Murder, yes, exactly. The foreman waved them through, already moving to the next problem. The next delay, running the loading dock was warfare. Constant, exhausting. These people worked harder before sunrise than Robert had worked in months, maybe years. They navigated concrete corridors, the tower's circulatory system, pipes and wires and ducts that kept the building alive. Robert had walked these halls during construction, 28 years ago, when everything was raw concrete and exposed steel, before the marble lobbies and executive suites, before he'd forgotten what the foundation looked like. Past the boiler room, his whisper barely audible. Left at the junction, the laundry distribution room. They turned, heat rising, the boiler room humming like a dragon. Then Robert stopped, pulled Elena behind a stack of pallets. What? Her breath quick, controlled. Look, at the corridor's end, two men guarded double doors, not maintenance, not staff. Tactical vests under dark jackets, weapons held low but ready. Professional, prepared. Derek's team. He locked it down. Elena's voice stayed steady, assessing. Knew you'd come from below if you came at all. The secret entrance is behind that door, behind a false wall, leads straight to the executive penthouse. 50 feet separated them from salvation. Two trained killers stood between. Automatic weapons versus clipboard and desperation. The math didn't work. Elena scanned their environment, looking for options, angles, anything. Her legal mind working tactical problems. Her father's training surfacing. When direct confrontation fails, change the battlefield. But before she could formulate strategy, Robert moved, pushed the laundry cart straight into the corridor. Elena hissed, "What are you doing?" Robert didn't answer, didn't crouch, didn't hide. Walked with the cart toward armed men, purposeful, confident, authority radiating from every step. This was Robert Sterling's natural weapon. Not violence, presence, the ability to command rooms, to make people believe he belonged, to project power until power became reality. The guards snapped to attention, weapons rising. Halt, area restricted. Robert kept walking, cartwheels clattering, echoing. I said halt. The first guard racked his weapon slide, threatening, serious. Robert stopped 10 feet away, removed the stolen baseball cap. Let light hit his face. Unmistakable, undeniable. Gentlemen, his voice boomed, filled the corridor, the voice that had silenced the New York Stock Exchange, that had commanded boardrooms for 40 years. You are standing in front of my laundry room. The guards froze. Training versus instinct. They'd been told Sterling was dangerous, demented, a threat. But he stood before them looking annoyed, authoritative, in control. Cognitive dissonance paralyzed them. Mr. Sterling. The first guard's weapon lowered slightly, confusion bleeding through professionalism. We were told you're experiencing a medical emergency, that you're dangerous, and you were told lies. Robert stepped closer, leveraging every ounce of executive presence. Now open that door before I have your pension fund liquidated and your security clearances permanently revoked. Pure bluff, no authority, no power, just decades of being obeyed creating the illusion of control. For 3 heartbeats it worked. The guards looked at each other, uncertain. This man was their employer. They'd been trained to protect him. Decades of corporate hierarchy screamed obedience. Then the earpiece crackled. Derek's voice. Cold. Final. Target confirmed in basement. Lethal force authorized. Repeat. Lethal force. The first guard's face hardened. Sir, get on the ground. Now. The moment shattered. Metal pipes smashed into the guard's knees. Elena. Flanked during Robert's performance. Swinging with brutal efficiency. Krav Maga precision. The guard dropped, screaming. Robert shoved the laundry cart. Desperate strength. Physics and momentum. The heavy cart slammed the second guard into concrete. Pinned him. Weapon clattered across floor. Elena grabbed the key card from the fallen guard's belt. Swiped the door. Green light. Blessed green light. They tumbled through, slammed the door, engaged the deadbolt. Bullets sparked against steel. Bang, 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 the sound of pursuit. Of murder barely avoided, of borrowed time running out. The laundry room stretched before them. Industrial washers lined walls. The smell of detergent and steam. Fluorescent lights hummed. Ordinary, mundane, except for the desperate fugitives who just fought their way inside. They'll blow the hinges, Elena shouted over the gunfire pounding the door. Robert ran to the back wall, hands frantically feeling bricks, counting. 3rd from floor, 7th from left, pressure plate. He pushed, nothing, pushed harder, nothing. 20 years since he'd used this, 20 years of settling, of mechanisms seizing, of his secret escape route becoming unusable exactly when he needed it most. It's stuck, panic crept into his voice. Then we unstick it. Elena kicked the brick. Hard, again. Using her whole body. Robert joined. 2 people kicking concrete. Desperate. Synchronized. 1, 2, 3. Click. Hydraulic hiss filled the room. Beautiful sound. Mechanical angels singing. A 3-foot section of wall swung inward. Revealed what looked impossible. A velvet-lined elevator car. Pristine. Untouched by time. Robert's secret preserved perfectly. They dove inside as the laundry room door exploded off its hinges. Derek's team bursting through, weapons raised, eyes scanning. Robert slammed the red button. The wall groaned, reversed, sealed shut. Through the narrowing gap, Elena saw 3 men rush in, saw them raise weapons, saw them stare at solid concrete closing. Confusion on their faces. Where did the targets go? The wall became seamless. No seam, no evidence, just brick. The secret Robert had hidden for 28 years. The tunnel he'd preserved out of sentimentality. Now saving his life. The elevator ascended. Smooth, silent, fast. Rising through the tower's spine. Bypassing 50 floors of security. Of cameras. Of Derek's carefully prepared trap. Elena slid down the velvet wall, sitting on the floor. Shaking, adrenaline crash hitting hard. They'd made it, somehow. Against impossible odds. 2 desperate people against trained killers. And they'd won. For now. Robert leaned against brass railing, gasping, his body screaming. Too old for this, too tired. But alive. Still alive. This goes to the penthouse. His breath came ragged. Boardroom is 40th floor. We take stairs down 2 flights from my office. The elevator hummed, carrying them toward confrontation. Toward the moment where friendship died and truth emerged. Where Robert would face James, would look into the eyes of the man who'd killed Catherine, who'd tried to kill him, would demand answers that could never satisfy. He looked at Elena, this stranger who'd become his only ally, who'd sacrificed everything for principles her father taught, who reminded him what courage looked like. Whatever happens up there, his voice soft, genuine, you gave me my life back. Not just tonight. You reminded me why it was worth living. Elena met his eyes, saw the transformation. The billionaire who'd been invisible in his own way, surrounded by yes men and killers, never truly seen, never truly known, just like her. Different sides of the same coin. Don't get sentimental yet, she forced a smile. We still have to survive the next hour. The elevator chimed, cheerful, incongruous. The sound of arriving at luxury while covered in mud and blood and desperation. Doors opened. White marble. Modern art. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan at dawn. The penthouse suite. Robert's private domain. Untouched. Waiting. As if the last 12 hours had been a nightmare. As if he could wake up and everything would be normal. But normal had been a lie. Comfort had been delusion. Safety had been conspiracy. Robert walked to his desk, opened a hidden drawer, fresh shirt, charcoal blazer, the emergency clothes he'd kept for unexpected meetings. For maintaining appearance when appearance mattered, he stripped the filthy chef coat, changed, looked almost human again. Almost like the Robert Sterling from magazine covers, except for the eyes. The eyes had seen too much, had learned what betrayal tasted like. How do I look? Like a man about to end a war. Robert opened his wall safe, pulled out a leather portfolio, heavy, significant. Inside, 247 pages. The charitable trust documents, the transfer that would strip his power. That would make the company something beyond profit. Something that might actually help people like Elena, like Thomas Brooks, like everyone the system had abandoned. Once he signed, everything changed. Board dissolved. Voting shares transferred. Control surrendered. Everything he'd built for 40 years, gone. And he'd never felt more ready. They left the penthouse, descended stairs, 2 flights, 42nd floor to 40th, each step carrying weight. History, the end of one empire, maybe the beginning of something better. Outside the boardroom doors, Elena grabbed his arm. Thank you, for the library, for my dad, for being worth saving. Robert squeezed her hand. No, thank you for showing me what I'd forgotten. That wealth without purpose is just numbers. That power without principle is just cruelty. They approached the doors, massive oak, frosted glass, and behind them voices. The board in emergency session, James pushing for control, trying to cement power before Robert could return. Too late, Robert pushed the doors open. The boardroom fell silent. 12 directors frozen mid-conversation. James Thornton at the table's head, papers spread before him, mid-sentence, mid-lie, mouth still open, face draining of color. Robert Sterling stood in the doorway, muddy, bruised, blazer over destroyed shirt, looking like he'd fought a war, because he had. Elena beside him, uniform stained. Evidence folder clutched like a weapon. The waitress who'd become a warrior. I wouldn't sign those if I were you, Walter. Robert's voice cut through shock. Calm, controlled, absolutely certain. The tableau held, suspended, then shattered. James recovered first. Always the politician, the performer. Concern flooded his features. Robert, thank God, we've been terrified. You're not well. Please sit down. I'll call Dr. Morrison. I'm not unwell, James. Robert walked forward, each step deliberate. I'm furious. He pulled the insulin pen from his pocket, tossed it onto the polished table, silver against mahogany. It slid, stopped. Accusation made physical. Elena stepped forward, slammed the toxicology report beside it. That's not insulin. Pure digoxin. Lethal concentration. Fingerprints belong to Derek Stone. FB, I already has digital copy. Timestamped. Documented. Board members erupted. Voices overlapping. Confusion. Denial. Horror. Patricia Monroe stood. Blonde. Polished. Ice in expensive suit. This is absurd, Robert. You've clearly suffered some kind of breakdown. This girl's a waitress. You can't possibly believe... I believe evidence. Robert's voice stayed level. I believe my CFO and head of security tried to murder me. That they killed my wife 8 years ago. That they've been planning this for months. Silence crashed down. Heavy. Suffocating. James sat frozen, face cycling through emotions. Denial. Guilt. Calculation. Then something broke. The mask cracked. Tears started flowing. You want truth? His voice shattered. Fine. Yes. The insulin was poison. Yes. We planned to kill you because you were going to destroy everything we built. Robert stepped back. Physical blow. Hearing it confirmed. Spoken aloud. 35 years of friendship combusting into confession. James stood, trembling. Grief and rage warring. But Catherine, that was your fault. Your cost-cutting. You slashed the fleet maintenance budget. The mechanics reported brake failures twice. Your procurement team ignored them. The words hit like artillery. Robert's face went white. Memory flooding back. Budget meeting 8 years ago, cutting 40% from maintenance, increasing quarterly profits, stock price jumping, shareholders happy. Catherine and Sarah both driving company vehicles, both with failing brakes, both crashing because Robert approved savings that cost lives. I didn't know, his voice barely whisper. James, I didn't know the specifics. I know, James collapsed into his chair, sobbing. I know you didn't know because I covered it up, made it look like random failure, protected you, protected the company, protected my best friend from the guilt that would have destroyed him. The room held its breath, watching tragedy unfold, watching friendship die in real time. And how did you repay me? James looked up, face destroyed. 3 months later, Sarah needs surgery, experimental, $200,000. I came to you, begged you. You said we can't set that precedent. Use company insurance. Pain radiated from every word. Robert remembered the conversation, the calculation, the cold business logic. Insurance denied her. James's voice dropped to whisper. So I took the money, your money, to save my daughter. And when Catherine found out, when she threatened to expose me, I loosened her brake line, just to scare her, to make her stop. Silence. Then James's voice, broken. I didn't mean for her to die. The line failed completely. She crashed, and Sarah saw it happen. My trying to protect my daughter destroyed her even more. Robert felt the floor disappear. Everything he'd believed, everything he'd assumed, shattered. James wasn't a monster. He was a desperate father, a grieving friend, a man who'd made terrible choices from love twisted into poison. You're right, Robert's voice came quiet, devastating. I failed you. I was so obsessed with building the empire that I didn't see my best friend drowning. I should have written that check. Should have put your family before quarterly reports. He looked at the board, at Patricia, at all of them. That's why this trust is necessary. Because men like me forget what matters. We optimize profits and forget people. The Sterling Foundation will have oversight, accountability. It will never let another Sarah fall through the cracks. James looked up, hope and despair mixing. You're still going to sign him after everything? Yes. Robert pulled the leather portfolio, opened it. Because you were right about one thing, I owe you. The trust will include the Sarah Thornton Medical Fund. Permanent endowment. She'll have the best care. Forever. James shattered, sobs racking his body. I don't deserve that. I killed Catherine. I tried to kill you. No, you don't deserve it. But Sarah does. The moment held. Redemption and damnation intertwined. Then Patricia moved, heading for the door. Patricia Monroe, you're under arrest. NYPD detectives flooded in. Robert had triggered silent alarm when entering, had given FBI the evidence hours ago. Coordination, planning, the businessman executing strategy. Patricia screamed denials, dragged away. Derek Stone was already in custody, caught in the basement, confessing everything under interrogation. The board sat stunned, watching their world collapse. James stood, accepting handcuffs, meeting Robert's eyes. I'm sorry for Catherine, for tonight, for everything. Robert stepped close, voice low, private. I forgive you. I can't save you from prison, but Sarah will be cared for. And when you get out, if you can forgive yourself, there's a job at the foundation. James nodded, unable to speak, led away. Robert turned to the remaining board members. Anyone else want to argue against the trust? Silence. He sat at the table's head, opened the documents, found the signature line, picked up the pen. 247 pages. Countless hours of legal work. The transfer of billions, the end of one era, the beginning of another. He signed, Robert James Sterling, 7:48 a.m., witnessed, notarized by the trembling assistant who'd been hiding under the table. Done. Robert stood, looked at the sunrise through floor-to-ceiling windows. Manhattan waking up, unaware that everything had changed. One more thing. His voice carried finality. I'm resigning as CEO effective immediately. Gasps, protests. The foundation needs independent leadership. I'm too compromised, too close. I'll serve on advisory board, but I'm done running this company. He looked at Elena, standing quietly, witnessing history. Sometimes you need to give up power to find purpose. Elena Brooks walked through Columbia University gates on a September morning that smelled of possibility. New backpack, law textbooks, the weight of dreams deferred but not destroyed. Around her, students hurried to class, fresh-faced, privileged, most of them anyway. But not all. The Thomas Brooks Memorial Scholarship had changed that. Full ride for students who'd dropped out due to family crisis, who'd proven themselves despite impossible circumstances, who refused to give up. 40 students this year. Elena was number one. Constitutional law classroom. Professor Martinez pacing, asking impossible questions. When does desperation excuse crime? Can intent mitigate consequence? Elena raised her hand, remembered James, remembered Sarah, remembered the complicated truth that people do terrible things for understandable reasons. That understanding doesn't equal forgiveness. That justice requires both accountability and mercy. I think law exists because humans are messy. Her voice steady, confident. We hurt each other even when we love. The question isn't whether desperation justifies crime. It's whether we can build systems that prevent desperation in the first place. The professor smiled. Well argued, Ms. Brooks. After class, her phone buzzed. Text from Robert. Sarah's first treatment, successful, walking with assistance. James wrote from prison. Says you were right. Systems matter. See you at the library dedication Sunday? Elena smiled. Type back. Wouldn't miss it. Brooks Public Library had been renovated, expanded. New plaque outside. Thomas Brooks Memorial Library. Rebuilt by Sterling Foundation. In memory of a man who believed everyone deserves a second chance. Sunday evening, Elena stood before the plaque, touched bronze letters, her father's name, permanent, recognized, honored. Robert appeared beside her, casual clothes, jeans, flannel, no suit. Retired billionaire looked happier than corporate titan ever had. He'd be proud, Robert's voice soft. Yeah, he would. They sat on library steps, watching neighborhood kids play, mothers chatting, community thriving, the invisible people finally seen, finally valued. Do you ever regret it? Elena asked. Giving up the empire? Robert considered, honest. Every day, and never. Power is addictive, but purpose is better. Silence. Comfortable. Two people who'd survived impossible night. Who'd changed each other. Who'd learned that sometimes the right thing costs everything. And sometimes that's okay. James's parole hearing is in 7 years, Elena said. Will you testify for him? Yes, he's earning it. Helping with foundation planning from prison. Teaching other inmates, trying to atone. Forgiveness is hard. So is courage. Robert looked at her. You taught me both. Elena shook her head. I just dropped a tray. Robert laughed. Real. Genuine. The tray that changed the world. Sunset over Queens. Library lights warming windows. Children laughing. Hope spreading like light through darkness. Two people sat together. Billionaire and Waitress. Labels that meant nothing now. Just Robert and Elena. Friends. Allies. Proof that sometimes courage comes from unexpected places. That sometimes doing right matters more than staying safe. That sometimes the invisible people change everything. The night a waitress saved a billionaire had become legend. But the real story was quieter. Deeper. About systems that failed. About people who fought back. About the long, slow work of building justice one brick at a time. Elena Brooks would graduate Columbia Law in 3 years. Would become the defense attorney she dreamed of being. Would fight for people the system abandoned. Would win more than she lost. Robert Sterling would run the foundation until he couldn't anymore. Would build libraries and hospitals and schools. Would remember Thomas Brooks every time he cut a ribbon. Would never forget the night he learned what it meant to be saved by someone he'd never noticed. And somewhere in a medium-security prison in upstate New York, James Thornton would write letters to his daughter, would plan for release, would try to become worthy of the second chance he'd been given. 3 lives changed by one falling tray, by 5 words whispered in chaos, by the choice to do something instead of nothing, to fight instead of hide, to believe that maybe, just maybe, the world could be better than it was. The story ended, but the work continued, and that was enough.